ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो नमो अनिरुद्धाय हृषिकेश इन्द्रियात्मने नमः परमहंसाय पूर्णाय निवृत्तात्मने स्वर्गापवर्गद्वाराय नित्यं शुचि सदे नमः। नमः हिरण्यवीर्याय चातुर्होत्राय तान्तवे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So today is the 24th of August, and we are going to be reviewing the last verse in the series of Siksastakam prayers. So we're going to be talking about verse 8. And in the previous week, to have a quick recap of what we spoke, the previous week's verse, verse 7 of the Siksastakam, is Yugayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashchayitam Shunyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. So we spoke and briefly touched upon this verse while also being able to encapsulate the import of the verse for our purpose as we are sadhakas. The verse 7 and verse 8 are very advanced realizations of Sriman Mahaprabhu and of Prema Bhakti specifically. And what we could do is merely understand the purport and also understand our contradictory consciousness. The previous week, we are speaking about Mahaprabhu's feeling that he considers a movement to be like 12 years or more. A movement of separation from Krishna feels like 12 years or more for Sriman Mahaprabhu. And we spoke of the fact that for a beginner or for a sadhaka who is in anartha nivritti and who is making an attempt for progress on a daily basis, who is trying to overcome their conditioning and wanting to move forward, we experience the opposite. When we chant and we engage in sadhana, our own ability to digest sadhana and our own ability to engage in the chanting of the holy names is extraordinarily limited. If we spend maybe around an hour or so in chanting, we sometimes feel overwhelmed. Remembering Krishna is an experience for conditioned souls which is quite contradictory. Remembering him is not a natural process for conditioned souls because of the conditioning. We really struggle to overcome the various thought processes that enter into the head when we even take up the chanting of the holy names. When we call upon Krishna's names, when we hold on to the beads, we could be sitting in front of the deity. We could even be hearing the chanting of Srila Prabhupada or other senior Vaishnavas, but yet we struggle to simply control the onslaught of distractions that occur while we chant. Sometimes people are overcome by lethargy. They sleep. They fall asleep while chanting. So here's the contradiction. This is a contradictory situation where for the beginner, these struggles are present where there's so much energy which is being put into merely being able to prevent the interruptions to the chanting process. But toward the end, any interruption or even any more form of separation, according to Mahaprabhu, feels like like a millennium, like an eon. It's almost as if an insurmountable time has occurred before due to this and suffering has resulted because of separation from Krishna. We don't perceive separation from Krishna because of our conditioning. But the opposite occurs when one is advanced, where this perception of separation is intensified, and it reaches its samambonam. It reaches its peak, when someone is in Krishna prema, where they are able to experience Krishna fully, and his disappearance from view is almost unbearable. So this is an opposite condition, and it also gives us a flavor as to how far we have to be working toward to reach this state. How much do we have to go in terms of being able to travel this road of sadhana bhakti to be able to reach this point. We should not lose hope because this road has been traveled. Sriman Mahaprabhu is giving us a very clear indication of what awaits us. He's telling us that this struggle of yours is not going to be as intense as we make progress, because there's mercy which has been made available. If we put in the effort, we'll have the ability to receive the mercy, and that mercy would allow us to experience the exalted experiences of someone who is in Krishna Prema, of being inseparable from Krishna's presence, of unbearable separation, so on and so forth. In other words, the struggle itself, according to these verses of Siksastakam, we see that the struggle is dissipating as a devotee advances. It's a very clear characterization that if someone is following the process right from the beginning, these verses of Siksastakam are indicating that toward the end, when one reaches prema, the struggle is gone. There's no struggle after one has developed taste. There's no struggle when one has developed, a fixed consciousness of being able to render service. There's no struggle. All energy, most part, is going into the process as opposed to fighting to stay in the process. So that is the message which we receive as neophytes from verse 7. Okay. Now today's verse is the last verse, but it is also quite ultimate in its message. Now remember, verse 3 gave us a process. Trinadapi sunichena taroriva sahishnana manimanadena kirtane sada hari gave us a process. It gave us the process of being able to ultimately reach the point of being able to chant consistently, chant continuously, kirtane sadahari. And since our sadhana and sadhya are one and the same, kirtane sadahari is indicating that one experiences Krishna prema and one also experiences different stages of Krishna consciousness through the process of chanting. So Harinam Sankirtan or Kirtane Sadahari is the way to go. But that was the process for us to be able to consistently be able to stay on the path, for us to be able to chant continuously. Now, this process, which is being given in verse 8, it's practically a process which is telling us as to the inner sentiments, the mood of someone who has attained Krishna Prema. So the verse is Aslishyava Padaratam Pinastumam Adarshanam Marmahatam Karotuva Yata Tatava Vidatu Lampato Matprananatastu Saeva Naparaha. The translation: I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. This verse, if it were to be read by someone who is not associated with the process, someone who is perhaps, if this verse and the translation is passed on to a mundane psychiatrist or a psychologist, someone who deals with the challenges of the mind, if we were to pass on the translation of this verse, they would say that this is a crazy verse. Imagine someone, the whole concept of surrender is an alien concept for materialists. The whole concept of surrender is an alien concept in the normal functioning, the norm. We will be going against the norm. Remember, what is surrender? Surrender, the connotation of surrender is being defeated. The connotation of surrender is being overpowered. The connotation of surrender is being forced to do something against our will. Okay? So the materialist or someone who is not inclined towards pure devotional service would find this verse and its translation very disturbing if someone were to make a statement that, my quality of surrender is such, Krishna, that you may do anything you want to me. And even if you hurt me, I would still continue to take you as, keep you as my Lord. You are the Lord of my heart, And this particular statement is almost as if someone is worshipping, a masochist, someone who is worshipping someone who can hurt us. It is almost someone can mistake the meaning of this verse if they do not have a full context as to whether the pinnacle of Krishna consciousness really is a position of mental disturbance, as qualified or as classified by the modern day psychology professors, or the psychology texts and psychiatrists, so to speak. But the material world is the diametrically opposite, perverted reflection of the spiritual sky. Who are we surrendering to? When we think of surrender, okay, how many of us would like to make this prayer to Krishna saying, you can do anything you want to me? How many of us can very sincerely make this prayer to Krishna saying, you are my Lord, you can do anything you want to me? How many of us can actually have the courage to make that statement? Because even for devotees, even practicing devotees, to sincerely make the statement is a challenge, because they are afraid. There is fear, there's mistrust, and there's also disturbances related to Krishna in the heart. These are anarthas. So those who are in anartha nivritti, the devotees would not be able to make this statement because there is fear. There is a lack of understanding that the person whom they are addressing is in reality, their greatest benefactor, their greatest lover, so to speak. No one can give them love which Krishna gives. Krishna is the greatest of all in terms of being able to give love to the devotee. This understanding is not it's just merely a philosophical statement in most practitioners' minds. This understanding is more of a situation where they might believe that it is more of a situation of theoretical understanding, rather than being able to apply this quite practically. Devotees face a challenge in being able to make this statement to Krishna that you can do anything you want. Okay, there's fear. Even if we make it, and even if there's verbiage where we can speak it out, there will be fear in the heart about what Krishna can do. Or what if Krishna takes that away? What if Krishna takes this away? What if Krishna does this to me, which is unpleasant? What if Krishna does something which I may not be able to accept? There are all kinds of fears. And that is the reason why we struggle with our sadhana as well, because we have not understood that the pinnacle and the highest position is to be first able to trust Krishna implicitly. Trusting Krishna implicitly is the process which Mahaprabhu is giving us in the last verse. He is actually making a statement. He is making a statement saying he's demonstrating what it is to be attaining Krishna Prema. He is demonstrating what it is to be a resident of Vraja. He is demonstrating what it is to be, ultimately experiencing, the goal of this process, the Prayojana Tattva. Okay, he is expressing that. So this verse is not an ordinary verse because it disturbs the devotees. It would make the non-devotees quite confused as well. So one has to understand this process of surrender. One has to be able to kick out this particular fear that Krishna can cause harm. One has to develop this deep understanding that Krishna loves us more than anybody can. Krishna is the beloved. This is a statement made by someone who is 100% surrendered to Krishna, 100% with Krishna. Krishna makes this statement. What does he say in Bhagavad Gita? Okay, after saying Manmanabho Madbhakto Matyajimam Namaskuru, telling Arjun in 18.65 that you are meant to act in this way. Kirtanya Sadahari is your natural state. I am always in the center of your universe. He makes this statement. He's giving the process, and that is very confidential in the Bhagavad Gita. And after making such a statement, he goes on to further qualify 18.65 and 18.66, where he says Sarvadharman Parityajya. This verse is Sarvadharman Parityajya. I have no other identity other than being a servant of Krishna. I have no other identity. And what does Krishna say? Sarvadharman Parityajya, Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. There is no other consideration. Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayasmi Ma Suchaha. Why does Krishna say do not fear? Why is Krishna saying Ma Suchaha? Because we are afraid. We are afraid. We are afraid to act upon the subject matter of verse 8. We are afraid to go before Krishna and making a statement saying, you do whatever it takes. do whatever is required. I want to be able to attain you. Or do whatever you need to do because I'm your property. This will not come out with love. There will be a lot of fear. That's why Krishna has to say in 18.66, Masuchaha. He is saying Masuchaha. Mamekam Sharanam Raja. And he is also saying Masuchaha. Do not fear. Do not fear while approaching me because I'm going to take care of you. He's making that promise. And he keeps that promise. There are so many different stages of spiritual consciousness one has to pass through before reaching. And each stage that we pass through, there are gifts to be experienced. Krishna consciousness is scientific because if I were to experience Krishna consciousness, I would experience at least at a certain, at a level where the experiences would be the same. So it is scientific because the acharyas have experience and they can write literature. We follow these footsteps of the acharyas. We can experience what they have experienced depending on our level of surrender. Okay. And further down, others can experience what the acharyas have given and what we have experienced. So Krishna consciousness is quite scientific because it is consistent in terms of being able to develop a system, offer a process, and then that process in itself gives experiences which are all quite aligned with Shastra. They are quite consistent across the board, whether practitioners, gurus, so on and so forth. Right? So Krishna consciousness is such that at each and every stage, one is given a gift. Each and every stage, one is given a gift. And that gift propels us towards the next stage. It enthuses us, and we want to move to the next stage, move to the next stage, move to the next stage. We advance. There are incentives which are given. And one becomes very eager when they experience a heavy dose of Krishna consciousness. And the heavy doses begin when one is fixed in Nishtha. When Krishna is the object, their other distractions have become minimized. And the real Krishna consciousness and bhakti begins in bhava. Before bhava, we are trying to attain the platform of bhakti. After bhava, there is bhakti. And then it further condenses, and then you're now talking about prema tattva. This is the highest position in this verse 8. And in verse 8, when one is experiencing Krishna fully, then where is the question of lack of confidence? Where is the lack of fear? I mean, where is the fear? Where is the fear of something happening? Because there really isn't an identity of anything other than Krishna. So this statement is coming out quite genuinely at the highest level because the experience itself is very intensified. There is no question of faith. There is no question of faith. Faith is required when we are dealing with an unknown substance. Faith is required when the result is not known if we follow a certain process. Faith is required when we have to simply accept and then we'll have to plow along and then experience it at a later date. Here, there is no question of faith. These are experiences themselves. Someone has already attained the position of being able to interact with Krishna. Someone has already attained the position of being able to interact and serve Krishna. They have attained the pinnacle of the process. They have already attained the pinnacle. So in such a state, the statement of a very sincere statement of you can do anything to me is not out of the order. And it is very consistent with Krishna's demand in Bhagavad Gita. It is very consistent with even our own understanding of how love operates. You see, a child is not so afraid to run into the arms of its parents. You see, the child is not afraid. You can do anything to me is a statement that comes when the opposite party is so well known and the intentions are well known. Why is it that we struggle with making this statement before Krishna? That is a matter of introspection for us. We struggle because the opposite party, Krishna, is not known to us, even though we claim we know him. We are afraid of him. We are afraid that something which is more important than him is going to get taken away if we make that statement, which means that there are things which are more important than Krishna in our lives. We are afraid. Okay? So now we have an understanding of what is the pinnacle of attainment of Krishna consciousness. What is Prema Tattva? Prema Tattva is full absorption in Krishna. There is no other priority, which is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita as well. He says, Mamekam Sharanam Raja. He says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Dharma is born out of assuming identities. He's saying, give up all those identities and the associated dharmas. There is only one identity of being related to me. Mamekam Sharanam Raja. And he's also saying, Masuchaha, do not fear. There will be no loss. Okay? There will be no loss whatsoever. Don't worry. I will be there. That's the confirmation which is given by Krishna repeatedly. And here, Mahaprabhu is reciprocating as the topmost devotee. He is reciprocating to Krishna's call. He is saying, I am there. Okay? And Mahaprabhu is responding that you can do anything you want. He is responding, saying, this is the process. At the highest level, there is a process. You can do anything you want. You can do anything you want, Krishna, because I love you. I know that you love me even more. You can do anything you want. You know, I'm yours. I'm your property. If you treat me well, so be it. If you do not treat me well, so be it. Immaterial of how you treat me, I'm your property. I'm yours. So that statement is being made after full understanding in verse 8. Okay? In fact, we are completely unqualified to even discuss this verse or the preceding ones or even the ones before. But we are simply making an attempt to have an understanding of what it is at the highest level. We are also wanting to understand where we stand. Can we go before Guru? Can we go before Krishna? Make the statement, do anything you want. Why are we afraid? We are afraid because there are other things which are more important than Krishna. So now here the issue comes up. The issues are coming up slowly. That there are other things. We have other identities in this world which we consider as being more important than Krishna, being a devotee of the Lord. And since those identities are existing, for us, Sarva Dharman Parityajya is not possible. Those identities and our attachment to those identities are blocks, which will prevent us from making this statement and carrying out Krishna's orders. So this is not to be taken lightly, but this is to be understood as to where we stand. And it has to be worked upon. And what is the work which is demanded? The work that is demanded is to chant the holy names. It is the chanting of the holy names which is going to grant us Vidya Vadu Jivanam. Vidya Vadu Jivanam, or a life filled with knowledge, is a matter of being able to chant nicely. That Vidya is the Vidya which is going to liberate us from misconceptions. Okay? And that liberation is also being shunned by the devotee because he doesn't care to be relieved of distress or to be receiving other bhuktis. He is concerned more with being able to serve. Even that is being rejected. But Vidyavadu Jivanam is required. Vidyavadu Jivanam is granted by the holy names, isn't it? Look at the Bhagavad Gita and the structure of the Bhagavad Gita as well. Third chapter talks about action in Krishna consciousness, isn't it? Karma Yoga. So the fourth chapter is transcendental knowledge. Fourth chapter is transcendental knowledge. So the question is that when one acts, which is to chant the holy names, keeping Krishna in the center, centering everything around Krishna, and then executing a life around Krishna, then automatically one is able to experience transcendental knowledge, which is the fourth chapter. Okay? Bhakti, which is the topic of the fifth chapter, is impossible without the previous two chapters filling out. So it is required for us to be able to act. Our karma yoga has to be pakka so that we don't develop attachment. Instead, we are able to act as a matter of duty. When karma yoga itself is perfect, then one is experiencing knowledge because they are engaging in sadhana. That is, transcendental knowledge is revealed to them. When action, which is purified by transcendental knowledge, then you move further. Okay? So one cannot really move forward unless there is Vidyavadu Jivanam. And Vidyavadu Jivanam, which is the revelation of our eternal identity, occurs due to the chanting process, occurs due to the process of calling upon the holy names very diligently without offenses. So everything practically is in those bead bags. Everything lies in how we use our time in being able to capture our chanting, how to improve our chanting on a day-to-day basis. Okay, let us quickly summarize the Siksastakam, as this is the last verse, and we will just review the different stages that Mahaprabhu referred to, so that it kind of refreshes itself. So the first shloka, Mahaprabhu is talking about the perfections that are available due to the chanting of the holy names. So he's talking about 7 different perfections that are available due to the chanting of the holy names. And in the second verse, he is talking about our own inability to follow a process which is so clearly beneficial. There's so much mercy which has been given, but then Mahaprabhu is saying, even though mercy has been given, what is this misfortune of mine that I am unable to take up this mercy? That is the second verse. Okay. And then the third verse, he is giving us the process of being able to attain the 7 perfections of chanting the holy names, which is Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasahishnuna. He is giving us the 4 steps of humility, tolerance, pridelessness, and being able to respect others. All of this is a part of the process one needs to follow so that we can chant continuously. Because chanting continuously is the process that is required for us to attain the 4th verse. The purport of the 4th verse is where this knowledge comes into the head, and there's complete, anartha nivritti, where I do not want wealth. He's talking about all the stuff, I do not want. I do not want wealth. I do not want, the opposite gender, which is women or men, depending on who we are. And I do not want fame. I do not want, of course, followers, position, so on and so forth. He's saying, I do not want any of that in the 4th verse. Okay? That is knowledge which is coming in, because now Anartha Nivritti is complete. Then he's talking about this knowledge that has been attained. The 5th verse, he is practically saying that now I've understood that I am your servant. Swarup Gyan. And he's saying, now that I've understood that I'm your servant, and I've understood who I am in relationship to you, I would never want to move away. And he is making this plea to him with great fear, saying, please, 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 Krishna, keep me as an atom at your lotus feet. And then comes verse 6. And verse 6, he practically talks about the experiences of higher sentiments and bhava, and the higher emotions of someone who is very deeply attached to Krishna consciousness, who is attached to Krishna, who is experiencing, the symptoms of being able to chant the Shuddha Nam, the symptoms of someone who is able to call upon the pure name. So he's talking about it in verse 6. And then verse 7 and verse 8 practically captures Prema Tattva, which is the highest achievement and the sadhya, the goal of the process, Prayojana Tattva, right? And verse 7 and verse 8 are the incredible states of consciousness one experiences when one is in Krishna Prema. One is unbearable separation, and the other is, I'm ready to do anything. Krishna, do anything you want, I'm your property. This ultimate surrender, the process of submitting oneself to the beloved. So this is not some kind of twisted mental situation, as it would be understood by a mundane reader of Siksastakam. This is a situation where one has known the person across. And then in the last verse, we also get to compare our own chitta, our cheto darpana. How much marjanam has happened in our chitta, where can we really go before our deities and say, do anything you want? We are afraid. We are afraid because we don't trust Krishna. We don't. We are afraid of Krishna. This is anartha. This is what requires nivritti. And that nivritti comes from the process of calling upon the holy names quite diligently. That is what is required. Because one who calls upon the holy names without offenses, offenselessly, then there is progress, and then there's vidyavadu jivanam. When vidya comes in, avidya goes away, then one is able to see their eternal form, and then the fear is gone, because now you are a part of the eternal realm, and in the eternal realm, we speak the language of the eternal realm, which is what the last 2 verses were. The last verse specifically is the language of the eternal realm. where there's complete submission of both the devotee and Krishna to the devotee. Both. There's complete submission. Okay, we'll stop right here. This is the last verse of the Siksastakam. So we have concluded based on our very meager understanding the process, which is aligned with our earlier discussions of Harinam Chintamani, earlier discussions on Madhurya Kadambini. We wanted to crystallize it because it is easier to read 8 verses and to set milestones rather than remembering so many different things. So these 8 verses of Siksastakam practically captures everything for us. It captures the entire process, gives you the essence of Harinam Chintamani, gives you the essence of Madhurya Kadambini, gives you what the sadhya is, it reminds you of what the problems are, reminds you of what not to aspire for, reminds you of what to aspire for. All of that is there in Siksastakam. So it's a daily meditation. If someone were to pick up and then read it on a daily basis and understand that, okay, here's where we are heading. This is the purpose of my being able to do, what I'm doing. This is connected to this. This is the sadhya. This is prayojana tattva. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm spending time. I'm doing all of that. This is what I'm going to attain. That reminder, a daily reminder, is extraordinarily important in our process. Okay? So we have concluded that, and hopefully all of us, including myself, we will be able to reflect on the verses on a daily basis. And we will be able to use this to further enthuse us as we make advancement. Now, while I wait for questions, if there are any, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we plan to do going forward. Firstly, there will be no class on Thursday, which is the upcoming session. And obviously because we have the deity installation and so many other programs in the temple. So there would be no class on Thursday. We would be meeting again on Monday, which is the following Monday, a week from now. And starting Monday, we will be continuing our discussions Monday, Thursday in that pattern. And I reflected on what is going to be useful for the devotees. I did not want to take up Srimad Bhagavatam and then proceed in a structured manner as we go along in isolation. What I wanted to do was to alternate Monday with Bhagavad Gita, Thursday with Srimad Bhagavatam. And the reason being that the Bhagavad Gita prepares us to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Without a proper, deep understanding of the Bhagavad Gita, we cannot really approach Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we do not complete Srimad Bhagavatam in a proper way, we will never be able to graduate to Chaitanya Charitamrita. And without that, there's really nothing. Right? So what we need to do is to have an understanding of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in light of preparing to read Srimad Bhagavatam for Thursday. That's the distinction. Just as today, we touched upon various verses from the Bhagavad Gita in wanting to explain the last verse. In a similar fashion, we'll be touching upon Bhagavad Gita on Mondays to prepare us for the Bhagavatam session, which is going to happen on Thursday. So there would be some kind of a bridge that we would be able to form as we progressively move forward, because both these scriptures are very highly linked, and the Bhagavad Gita gives us great clues in being able to go into Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam cannot be understood without fully understanding what Krishna wants us to do in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is telling us what to do. He's telling us how to approach. He's telling us the mood. He's telling us the process. And then everything else is in Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of being able to enthuse us about his activities. So we would want to combine both. So I would want to do Monday's Bhagavad Gita, and then I would want to do Thursday's Srimad Bhagavatam. I would not be doing a verse by verse. I would probably be taking several verses in the same session, and I would be summarizing them within the half hour, 45 minutes time frame which we are having now. I would be summarizing them, and again I would be doing the same. I would be progressing in a linear fashion. I would be progressing from one chapter to the other, but I would be taking up many verses, and I would probably be sharing the essence after giving those verses so that one will have an understanding. So without that, we don't want to jump, okay? And it's easier. Now that we have understood the goal, we would be able to connect the goal to the various techniques given in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam. The goal was not understood. So if you don't understand the goal and you begin Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, it's very difficult to move forward. one is, thinking that something else, they spend time. Now that we have spent considerable amount of time touching upon the goal, touching upon the process with 3 different texts, now we will be getting into the primary text which Prabhupada gave us, Srila Prabhupada gave us. He gave us Bhagavad Gita. We'll touch upon Srimad Bhagavatam, both of those. Okay. So, any questions? And we will be meeting next week on Monday, not on Thursday. Any questions? If anybody has any questions, they can post them, either related or unrelated. Okay, there are no questions, so we'll stop right here, and we'll meet next Monday, and we'll continue with our first discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. Following that, on Thursday, we will continue with Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.